Hey, what's up guys? It's Chris, Manafest. Today I want to talk to you guys about how I became a published author and how I wrote the fighter book and the process that I took into writing it. Books had totally just changed my life, made a huge impact on me, especially when I quit my job and I went on tour and I realized, you know, the music industry was a lot tougher than it was. And it was in the books that I read that totally impacted me, and the stories of people that had gone through hard times but didn't give up. And I realized that a lot of people had failed and made mistakes, and I was like, man, I can relate to that. So that's when I started to get the idea to write a book, because they had impacted me in such a huge way. And so I'd be on tour, and things had started to work out, and I was flying to different shows, and I remember I had my BlackBerry. This is like super old school. Remember these? And I was typing my ideas out on it, just in notes, and just making, you know, just typing it all out and just getting ideas, and I was getting excited about it. I just kept on typing, and from show to show or wherever I was, I'd get another idea and I'd start to organize it. And then one day I deleted it. I deleted the whole thing. And I was so discouraged. I was like, man, you know, am I really supposed to write this book, or do I just quit? And so a few weeks went by, a month went by, and the idea just kind of kept coming up, and I was like, man, I need to write this thing. I need to put this story out there, because I think it can encourage people. And so it was on July 1st, 2011. I was in Franklin, Indiana at a show, and in between sound check, I went to a department store, and for 43 cents, I bought this little notepad here, and I wrote "Fighter" across the front of it. And inside, I just started, you know, writing out the dedication, and writing out like the chapter outline and preface here, and just a whole bunch of stuff, right? And every chance I got while I was on tour, I would just write as much as I could. I remember I would dip to a Starbucks and get like a tea and an apple fritter, because those were my favorites. And I would just write and just get alone and just write as much as I could. And once I had this thing fully filled out, right, as much as I could, once it was all filled out, I typed it out all longhand. Or no, I wrote it all longhand, and then I typed it all out on my computer. And once I had it all typed out, I started to organize it and get it all ready, and, you know, go through it. And I realized this is like a huge, you know, job. This is a huge project, and I really don't know what I'm doing at all. And so I had my wife read it, and she was like, yeah, you should probably fix this up, and you should probably fix that up. And so I was like, back to the drawing board. So I started to write more and rewrite stuff and fix it all up and line it up. And I remember I had her look at it again, and that's when I started to Google self-publishing companies and getting somebody to edit it. And when you type that into Google, it was like this labyrinth of options, and I was all of a sudden in this book publishing world, and I was just like lost in all this stuff. And I remember I started talking to people on the phone and getting quotes and seeing like what's the best thing to do, and all of a sudden people are like just trying to sell me stuff, and it was just like, oh, it seemed like a little sketchy. And then finally I found this company. I hired them to do the editing because I thought they were totally legit, and it took me a while. Paid them $1,000, gave them my manuscript, and I was not happy at all with what I got back. I even sent it to a friend after they'd sent it to me, and he's like, dude, you paid money for this? And I was like, really? Is it that bad? He's like, yeah. He sent me what he thought should get fixed up, and he was really detailed, and I was like, oh man, I just like wasted $1,000. And so that's when I just kept on doing some more searching on the internet, and I came across a guy named Michael Hyatt, who wrote this book Platform and used to be the CEO of Thomas Nelson. And I ended up taking one of his courses that he was speaking at. It was like a thing called A Day of Books with John Maxwell. I paid some money for that, and that was super inspiring on writing. And so I took that course. I took his course on how to submit your manuscript to get published. And all of a sudden I just started taking all these courses, and I started like buying books on writing because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I took this one. This was with Brian Tracy. It's called How to Write and Become a Published Author. There's an audio course with this, and there's the Day of Books thing as well too. That was the John Maxwell and Michael Hyatt one. That was awesome. But this totally helped me, and I just had to educate myself. And that's what you got to do, man. Like even with the music industry or stuff, sometimes you just got to step out there and get your hands dirty and learn. And then, so I just started to take all these courses and read all these books. I got this one on writing well. There's another one called Strunk and White. called The Elements of Style, and getting your style out and being creative. What was another one? This one was on the self-publishing manual. And just kind of like dove into this thing. And so I rewrote stuff, and I still wasn't super stoked on where things were at. And I remember I met with a good friend named Kayla back in Pickering, Ontario, and she read the manuscript, and she's like, man, it still needs a lot of work. And I was like, come on. I'm like, is it that bad? She's like, yeah. She's like, this isn't going to come out for another year. I'm like, a year? I was like, I was planning on releasing this thing in a couple months, you know? I've really worked on this. And so I went home and did some of the exercises she suggested, and I wrote out the book in longhand again, and the chapters and outline, and just kept on fixing it up. And then I remember my family was visiting me for a couple of weeks, and we were down in Laguna Beach just chilling out, and like the book nerd I am, I saw this sign that said bookstore, and so I was like, hey, I'll be right back. And so I took off to this bookstore, and I found this book on sale for 50 cents. It's called Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain, How I Went from Gang Member to Multi-Millionaire Entrepreneur by Ryan Blair. I couldn't put this book down. This dude had gone through a lot of the same struggles I did with losing his father and just different rough childhood and stuff. And I just loved the reading. I loved the story. And at the end, he thanked his chief writer. And I was like, thanked his chief writer? What's that? And her name was Shannon Constantine. And so I Googled her, and I emailed her, and I said, hey, it looks like you helped Ryan with his book. Would you be able to help me with mine? Can we meet up? And so she realized I wasn't a psycho, and I realized she was totally normal. And so we met up for a tea and coffee in LA with my wife and kind of interviewed each other, and I shared her the project. And that's when she took my manuscript, and she was like, hey, some of this is really good. Some of the stuff needs to be worked a little bit. And that's when we took one of the chapters that I had written called Anatomy of a Fighter, and we made the whole book about that. And that's when we came up with the 5 keys to conquering fear. And she interviewed me, and it was over like another 6 months to 8 months of interviews back and forth, having me rewrite, she would rewrite stuff. And it took a long time, but it was totally worth it. And I just realized that just like how a band or an artist hires a producer to produce a song or produce an album, it's really important to have a team and have, you know, like a writer or a co-writer to help you produce your book. Like for the Fighter book, there was a lot of people involved in this, and especially with my wife, and then the design and all the work we put into this, and the photos and the outlining. And I realized with something, and I hope this doesn't discourage you, like seeming like it's a lot of work, because it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun, and I was learning, and the best thing is I didn't know what I was doing. Same thing how I didn't know what I was doing when I got involved in the music industry. And sometimes that's the best thing, to just get your hands out there and get them dirty and just have some fun. And all of a sudden we'll have something, but you just got to put the work in. And so I just want to encourage you, you know, like I know you have a story. It's a different story than mine. It's different than anyone else because it's unique and it's yours. And I encourage you to put it out there and share, because you have experiences and you have things that are worth sharing and that people want to hear, and you don't know until you put it out there. So I just want to kind of share this video on how I kind of put this stuff together and how this book came to be, and encourage you guys, hey, to chase your dreams. Maybe it's not writing at all, but maybe there's something in there. Start today. One of the key things is to take action. Action fuels success. Action is what makes things happen. When you put something out there, there's always a response to you doing something. So hey, this is Manafest hanging out. If you don't got the Fighter book yet, pick it up, fighterbook.net. I love you. I believe in you guys. Peace.